Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our small talk today, which is all about the power and history of insulators, presented by the Transcona Museum. My name is Jennifer, and I'm the assistant curator here, and I will be leading this presentation today. So if you like what we're doing, we ask that you please consider supporting the Transcona Museum. You can make a donation or become a museum member. You can also support us by staying in touch. So we have our website, www.transconamuseum.mb.ca. We're also active on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We also have a blog. You could also join our mailing list. We have a monthly e-newsletter that goes out at the start of the month with information and updates on events, programs, and all sorts of wonderful things that we do here at the museum. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the Transcona Museum resides on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. So like I said, our talk today is all about insulators. I'm going to talk about both glass and porcelain insulators, how to identify them, some defining characteristics and features of insulators, and tips or resources that are available to help further delve into the history of insulators that you might have in your own personal collections. So why insulators? One of the first things I did here when I started on at the museum was actually inventory the insulators in the museum's collections, and I just really was taken with them. They come in all different types of colors and shapes and sizes, and there's so much history that you can glean from them, and they're just simple glass and porcelain objects with such history. So that really piqued my interest. But insulators themselves, they are designed to keep the wires linking telegraphs and telephones insulated from the wooden poles that held them aloft. So you can see my mouse right here. So a great example of a working insulator. So affixed to the wooden poles and the wire attached to the insulator itself. They were first produced in the 1850s, and they would see their peak during the 1920s to the 1940s. They are made from glass and porcelain with a variety of shapes and colors, and they are prized by collectors. In the collections here at the museum, we have approximately 137 insulators from about 10 different donors. Glass insulators make up the majority of the collection, with a small group of porcelain and ceramic. So we have about 113 glass insulators and 20 porcelain insulators. The most common ones that we have were made by the Dominion Glass Company, or the Diamond Glass Company, and the Hemingway Glass Company. The most common style that we have is the toll style, which was used for telephone long distance wires and poles. And that insulator right here on the corner is a toll style of insulator. And the most common colors we have are green and clear glass. So the anatomy of an insulator. You'll have the dome at the top, you'll have the crown, the wire ridge, a wire groove, a skirt, and inner skirts and bases. If you flip it over, you get a better sense of the skirts. So you can have an outer skirt like this one here with an inner skirt. And this insulator here has drip points, sharp drip points on its base, but there are different types. And then the threads, which is what would hold the insulator to a wooden peg. So to identify an insulator, there's a few different things to look for. The first thing to look for is the primary embossing. And this is the manufacturer's mark, which is either brand name or initials used by the company to identify their insulators. This is an example of an insulator from the Hemingway Glass Company. So its manufacturer mark will be on the front of the skirt. So you can have different types of embossing. So you could have Hemingway 10, which would be a style or mold number specific to that insulator. You could just have, say, Hemingway, Hemingway 19, so once again the company name, 19 being the style or mold number, and 38, which would correspond to the year in which it was produced. Different types of embossing that you might see on your insulator, and sometimes it doesn't even just say Hemingway, sometimes it might be initials for the company. Sometimes you might not have any embossing at all, or just symbols. That is very common depending on the type of company that was manufacturing the insulator. And there are some really great resources though for identifying symbols as they correspond to companies online. Second thing to look for is mold and date codes. And these are combinations of letters, numbers, even symbols. And companies didn't adopt a standardized system until later. So a lot of this information is appearing in later insulators, not necessarily early ones produced. And these sometimes appear on the rear skirt or the back side. Different combinations that you might see. This example up here, 32, once again, the style or mold number. 38, that's going to correspond to a year, 1938, and the dot will symbolize 1 year after that initial 38 year. So this insulator was manufactured in 1939. Once again, made in the USA. And one more example, so made in the USA, Hemingway, once again, manufactured out of the US. 3 style or mold codes, 1941 plus 7, so this insulator was manufactured in 1948. And for the Hemingway company or Hemingway insulators that you might have, they have their own website that'll break down all this information, which is fantastic. And other companies might have this information as well, or you might find them in other books and materials available online. The third thing to look for is wire grooves. So that's where the wire is going to wrap around our insulator. And there are 3 different types. One, so you can see the wire groove in here between the ridges. You might have 2 wire grooves, 2 grooves in here, and then a saddle groove, so the wire is actually going to sit on top of the insulator in that groove. Fourth thing to look for is skirts and petticoats. There are 3 different types. A single skirt, a double, so 1 inner, 1 outer, and then a triple, which will have 2 inner and 1 outer. Now, one question we did have a couple days ago was why the different number of skirts and petticoats? And that'll have to do with the voltage or the use of the insulator on a particular voltage line. Apparently, the more skirts and petticoats it had, the more of kind of a buffer it had between the wooden peg base that it's affixed to and the wire or the outside. It also helped with, they were considered sometimes dry bands, so helped to wick away water from the insulator and the wiring. Increased resistance, so it might be a more hardier type of insulators, having 3 skirts and petticoats around the base as opposed to 1 can take a bit more damage. So that's what we were able to find just very quickly. So it helps with durability is basically what I should be saying. The 5th thing to look for is drip points, and they're found on the base of the insulator. So there are 4 different types. There's the sharp drip point, the rounded drip point, the corrugated base, and the smooth base. Now we have all 4 types here at the museum in our collections, which is pretty special. So we get to see an example of all these 4 types. And the purpose of the drip base is basically to wick water away from the insulator, so it would drip off the bottom. I'm not quite sure the idea behind the corrugated or smooth base. But there are just 4 types to look for. Another thing to look for is consolidated design numbers. Now, every different type of insulator has an assigned number, and CD numbers will start from 1 and will end at 1200. And it corresponds to a type of style. So, for example, all insulators that look like this will be CD 154. all insulators that look like this will be 132, and so on and so forth. So it's just a way to identify a particular style or look of insulator based on a design number. And design numbers were actually put in place as a system much later. So it's something that collectors use. And there are definitely resources online. I've seen websites that have all numbers 1 to 1200. You can click on it, you can look at an image of the insulator so you can compare it to your own. But these numbers will not appear on the insulators themselves. These are just additional numbers that have been assigned to them. All right, so let's turn the camera around and identify and look at some of the insulators that we have in the museum's collection. So the first insulator I have here is this one. So it's a glass insulator, kind of running through a lot of the identifications. It actually does have a manufacturer's mark. I didn't notice it until a couple days ago. But this insulator has these vertical and horizontal ribbings, and in between the ribbings at the skirt here, it actually has the name of the manufacturer, which was the Canadian Pacific Railway Company. So it's a Canadian Pacific Railway insulator, which is really neat. It has a smooth base and just the one skirt, one wire ridge, you can see here. And color is not necessarily an indicator of anything, but this is a light aqua blue type insulator. Once again, they come in multiple different colors. And it does have a little bit of, from my camera here, a little bit of damage, so was obviously used. So what I was able to find online is that this is a beehive style of insulator, so that's just kind of the nickname that it's been given. And it's a CD 143, which is corresponds to this particular style of insulator produced by a specific company, which was the Frederick H. Whitcomb Company out of Montreal. There are 3 different types corresponding to this company. One will have vertical ribbing on the top and bottom, one will have horizontal on the top and bottom, and then our style, which has vertical on the top and horizontal on the bottom. I thought that was pretty neat. There are not many insulators that actually look like this. I'm not all too sure why, and they decided to have grooves and ribbing on the insulator, but I suspect maybe it had to do with trying to wick water away from the wire. But a very neat and unique insulator in our collection. Okay, here it is. So our next style of insulator here, this is a clear glass insulator. Looking at our manufacturer's marks, I can see that it says Hemingway 16 on the front of the skirt. We also have additional information on the rear of the skirt, made in USA 3-56 plus 4 dots. So I know it's made by the Hemingway Company, manufactured in the USA, style mold number 16. And it was made in 1956 plus 4, so 1960 it was manufactured. It has one wire groove, actually has a corrugated base, so one of the few that we actually have corrugated examples in the collection, and one skirt. So it was produced by, once again, the Hemingway Company out of the US. If you go on their website, really great website, you'll be able to find examples and images of this insulator and different types of variations that might exist with this style. This one is actually a small wire groove variant, which means that the wire groove here is a bit narrower in this particular look compared to others of its similar style. It's a CD 122, and it would have been used for telephone long distance wire lines. Our next insulator here, it's definitely seen better days. So not every insulator is going to be in perfect condition. Completely missing the top here. But it's purple, smooth base, one wire groove, one skirt, and the only markings that it has are these diamonds on both the rear and front skirt. This most likely means it corresponds to the Dominion Glass Company or the Diamond Glass Company. The companies merged at some point in their history. But other than that, that's probably as much information as we're probably going to be able to get from this insulator. We might be able to go online and see similar, maybe an image that might look similar to what we have here, but once again, it has been broken, so we'd have to speculate what the dome would look like. But just goes to show that not every insulator is going to be in great condition, and there's only so much information that you might be able to gather from it just on a visual inspection. I have a porcelain insulator here, one of the few in the collection. I just love this one. It's such a neat shape. But this beautiful brown glazing to the insulator here. Most of our porcelain insulators are actually brown, light brown, or white in color. I have a couple of white examples coming up. But if glass and porcelain have similar characteristics, then this one has a smooth base. I don't know if porcelain have different types of bases like sharp drip points or rounded drip points. That's something I'm going to have to look up. But this one does have two skirts, petticoats, an outer and an inner, and one wire groove here. And I actually noticed as I was pulling it, it does have, if I can get it out of the light here, there we go. It does have a small manufacturer's mark right here off the edge of the dome. I didn't notice it before, most likely because it was on the edge of the dome here. But it's a B encased in an oval. Some quick looking online, it was produced by the Ohio Brass Company, most likely out of the US. I haven't been able to find any other information at this time about the company, but it's definitely more than I had a couple days ago. Some other porcelain ones here. So this is a white porcelain insulator, a beehive type shape. So that one wire groove here, one skirt or petticoat. And we do have a company, actually, it's backwards on the screen, I apologize, but it's a CPR, Canadian Pacific Railway, etched into the top of our insulator here. So that's great. We have a company. That's some information that we can use for research. So we have this example, and we also have this example. Very similar beehive. You know, the one skirt, it actually has CPR stamped into the top, and it's a lot, just based on its general appearance, it's a lot smoother, looks perhaps fairly newer. So just based on what I would speculate, I would say that the one with the etching on the top might be an older insulator as opposed to the one with the stamped mark on the top. Oh, and I have a great example here of a insulator with a saddle groove. Now we have a few of these in the collection. They tend to be a little bit heavier looking type of insulators. But so we have saddle groove on the top. This one actually has 3 skirts. So the outer and the 2 inner here. It is a smooth base. On the front, it says the Lock Victor New York So this was produced by the Frederick Locke. Yes, Fred M. Locke Company out of Victor, New York. And on the back, it's number 20. So that's our style mold number here. Some researching into this one quickly. This was a high voltage power insulator. The Locke Company actually produced more porcelain insulators than glass insulators, so there is a bit more information about his porcelain insulators than there are glass, but that's some great information to start. And also, this is a great example of sometimes the color is not always what it appears. So this, just basic visuals, it's very dark, but if we grab our flashlight here, it is a beautiful kind of blue aqua color. There is a layer of grime on the outside of the insulator. Once again, it's a working insulator. So if this was in a personal private collection and not in a museum, this definitely could be cleaned, shined up, and it would look absolutely brilliant. Okay, now we have this one right here. So it's this beautiful light ice blue color, light aqua color of insulator. We have one wire groove right here. Smooth base, just the one skirt petticoat. We do have a company, the BT Company of Canada, which is Bell Telephone Company of Canada. And that's all the markings that are on this insulator here, but a good place to start. We have a company. And some basic quick researching. This is a long distance telephone type insulator, and CD number 121. Then this insulator right here, so a very different shape. So running through our information here, we have the company on the front, so you can't see it very well, but it's the HG Co., which is Hemingway Company, patent May 2nd, 1893. So this insulator was patented in 1893. Great place to start in terms of dating. On the back it says petticoat. Haven't been able to find out why that is, but it has one wire groove, sharp drip points. There's a great example of sharp drip points, and two petticoats or skirts, the outer and the inner. So manufactured by the Hemingway Company, probably not in 1893, but manufactured sometime after that. Once again, a little bit more research as to why that petticoat embossing on the back. But this is a CD 164, which was used for street railway lines, which is pretty neat, actually. Let's see, grab some other ones here just to show. This one is great. It's this beautiful kind of almost 7-Up green color, and 7-Up green is a definite color in the insulator world. It's smooth base, one skirt, very, very shallow one wire groove here. And actually all its manufacturer's marking is on the top of the dome. It's very faint, it's quite worn, but what I can see is Brookfield, 55 Fulton Street, New York, so Brookfield Company out of New York, patented in 1870, so a very early style. We also have a couple other patent dates here from the 1870s, which is rather interesting, and then a backwards actual number here. So it's a 1 and a backwards 6. So I don't know if that's actually a manufacturing error, But that is rather interesting, one that I didn't notice before. So I definitely have enough information here to do some additional researching. These are two here, made by two different companies. The blue one here was manufactured by Hemingway, and the clear glass one here was made by the Dominion Company, but they're both mold style 16. There we go. So they look very similar, even though they've been produced by two different companies. So these will have the same CD number, most likely, because they are basically the similar style and design. Just slight differences. This is a good example of a rounded drip point right here. Smooth base, both have one skirt or petticoat and the one wire groove right here. And this is just a style that we don't have very many of these in our collection. It's a very neat shape, but it's definitely busted, not the greatest of condition. Smooth base, one skirt or petticoat, one wire groove right here. What information is on here? It has a 3, that's a mold or style 3 number, and patent date December 19, 1871. No other company information that I can see, but that is a bit of information that would definitely be a good starting point for researching. And you can always start researching first, or trying to identify the style or the CD number and kind of find out company information from there. So all our insulators are going to have different types of information or identifying features that we can use to help identify them. Some will have more information than others. It's just the way it is. And one more to show. This is a great, it looks clear glass in the image, in the video, but it's actually a very pale yellow color. So this will be considered a straw color of insulator. It actually has no markings on it whatsoever. I do know that this is a beehive style insulator. It's got the one groove here, 2 skirts, smooth base. So I'd be able to tell a bit more about its style, but not necessarily who manufactured it. If there's no manufacturer information whatsoever on the insulator, most likely will not be able to tell who manufactured it. And then just an example, we have a few of these in the collection. So these are the pegs that the insulators would sit on the telegraph lines. And we have our threading inside the insulator, so they would just thread on to the peg and just be affixed to the poles like that. All right, we're going to switch our screen here again. So value of insulators. Insulators will value in price from free to many thousands of dollars, and the value is determined by many factors such as their condition, who manufactured them, the quantity made, demand by collectors, color, age, origins, all that information. And a very common style of insulator will probably fetch a little less money than a more unique style of insulator. So just some examples on the bottom here. These styles here on the left are a bit more common, but then if you look on the right, those styles are more unique. You will not see those very often. So those will be a bit more prized and might fetch a bit more money. In terms of colors, the most common are crystal clear, greens, and aquamarine shades. And that's just because those are the, in glass making, the ingredients that use to make glass will produce most often clear, green, and blue type shades. If other elements or agents are added to the glass making materials, then you're going to produce different types of colored effects. So if you add magnesium to the glass, you will produce more purple style of colors. Selenium will produce more yellow colors. The only color not yet found in a real glass insulator is a true bright red. The closest you can get is probably a deep amber color. Still very beautiful, but if you ever see a really true bright red, probably not going to be authentic. And here's our color spectrum for all the colors that you might see in an insulator. The literal rainbow, everything from clear to beautiful, plums and purples and blues and greens over into more yellow olive colors. So we can see our amber colors over here and our dark amber reds and amber blacks. The closest we're going to get to a true red. Smoke colors, sage colors. We have frosted or produced every once in a while. And there's our 7-Up colors. So just beautiful. And the insulators circled in red are the colors that are represented within the museum's own collections here. So as I mentioned, mostly clears and blues and greens, a couple straw yellow colors. We do have a beautiful blue-gray one that was produced by the Canadian Pacific Railway Company. Showed some of our 7-Up colors. Dark olives. Oh yeah, we do have a dark olive one. So yeah. In terms of condition, the more damage an insulator has, the lower its value is going to be. The insulator price guides generally give a range of values. On the high-end value is going to be mint, so no damage whatsoever, and a lower-end value might be near mint, some damage. The more extensive damage, the even lower the value. Think of our purple insulator that I showed just a couple minutes ago. It is missing its top half, so it's not going to be valued at very high. Now, when it comes to collecting, it's basically what you're interested in. Some collectors will collect popular colors. This insulator right here is a Hemingway Cobalt Blue. It is a very popular color that was produced by the company, highly sought after. Some collectors might look for a particular style, company, and color combination. This insulator here is the Whitehall Tatum Company. That particular style in that color, which is that beautiful amber red color, is very, very unique, very sought after. There weren't very many of them produced, so keep a watch out for those if ever you find one. Some collectors look for imperfections, so this is a beautiful example of clear glass, I should say, with that blue inky color streaked right through it. I've seen ones that have a penny, actually, like a penny imprint on the top of them. I mean, we might have one here with an imperfection, that backwards number on that insulator, that green insulator. That might be an imperfection. It might just be they accidentally put, the code number in the mold wrong, but still is those imperfections that are make a lot of these insulators rather interesting. Opalescent color, so opal glass, those are rather beautiful. Some might collect a desirable style. So these are called, as a Mickey Mouse insulator produced by the Hemingway Company. Rather fun, interesting style, so clearly easy to see why some people will want to collect those. And others collect a popular manufacturer. So this is our a Serge company insulator. For whatever reason, very popular to collect. So keep a watch out for that one. There are altered and fakes out there. Crackle glass, it's meant to make it look like it's been used, crackled and broken. But as you see with some of the damage, the insulator doesn't crack or split in that type of manner. Painted or stained, really true, bright, in-your-face colors we don't tend to see in actual authentic insulators. So if you see these really, really bright colors, it might not be the real thing. You can still collect it if that's what you're interested in, by all means. But if you're looking for the authentic thing, stay away from those really bright colors. Etched markings, that is not common in insulators. You're going to see, you know, those stamp mold markings for our company and other information, not etchings. Physically altered, this one here, just me looking at it, it's two insulators that have been kind of smucked together. So really interesting to look at, but it's not going to be the real deal. Okay, so that's been a lot of talk on glass insulators, so now we're going to talk about some porcelain insulators. Local potteries began making porcelain insulators in the 1850s and 1860s, but production slowed as glass insulators could be made cheaper. But after the 1880s, porcelain actually became more popular because it has a greater strength and surface resistance, which is great things that you want in an insulator, a working insulator. So interest in porcelain insulators in terms of collecting has increased in recent years, and there's slowly more information that is becoming available online when researching porcelain. Porcelain themselves is a combination of clay, quartz, and feldspar, and they are covered in a beautiful smooth glaze. They are also produced in a variety of colors to imitate their glass counterparts, and you can have insulators ranging from blues and chocolate browns to yellows and greens and reds. If I go back a slide here, this here, very true black, is very rare to find. So if you ever find a black porcelain insulator that looks like that, you've got something special on your hands. Here, like I said, at the museum, we mostly have whites and browns. Composition types. Now this is one from the Transcona Museum's collections. Some were made from composite materials, and we have one that was made with mica. It's a good stable material, and mica can be exposed to moisture and extreme temperatures. I don't tend to bring it out very often because it is so fragile, but it's really, really neat. With markings, some porcelain insulators will have a manufacturer's mark and a date to help with identification. So actually here, so this B with the oval, that's the symbol that I have on the brown one that I showed earlier, which is the Ohio Brass Company. But different types, you can have that kind of raised marking. Some of them are stamped, some of them have been carved into the insulator, or what's the word I want? I think incuse marking. Incuse marking is when it looks like it's been etched into the insulator. If you're lucky to have a porcelain insulator with some information, manufacturer's marker date, that's amazing. Most in our collection do not, which is unfortunate, and that just means that we won't be able to find out who made the insulator. Now that you're interested in collecting insulators, where can you find them? You can look at antique shops, flea markets, and national shows. You can also still find insulators along railroad tracks. Now, the insulators that I've collected, I've gotten some of mine from antique shops. But if you're really interested in finding antique insulators from maybe railroads, railway lines that are no longer in service, that is something collectors will do. They will study old maps, find out where the old railway beds are, old non-use railway lines, and they will go out and try and see if they can find any insulators that have, you know, fallen to the wayside, maybe tucked into the dirt or grass. Because insulators are made out of glass and porcelain, you can't use a metal detector to find them. So it's kind of just, if you're going to get lucky and find something that one day, you might not. But sometimes it's just the thrill of the hunt, finding that unique style of insulator that you're interested in collecting. So now that you have your insulators and you found them, what can you do with them? Well, you can display them, you can turn them into art, you can upcycle them, endless possibilities. I have mine just as display pieces, and my parents they have them on the windowsill, so the light comes through them and they look very beautiful. all manner of things that you can do. It's just completely up to you what you'd like to do with it. In terms of resources, so I've talked about Hemingway. The company themselves has a great website with a ton of information on how to identify your insulator. Glacian.org/insulator, another great resource. Allinsulators.com, National Insulators Association out of the US, so NIA.org. Glassbottlemarks.com. There are many books and articles as well. There are whole websites devoted to just glass insulators, some to porcelain, some to both. Some companies, or some websites I should say, will focus on a particular company or a manufacturer. You can also find resources with guides on how to decipher mold and date codes, deciphering symbols for companies, so all that good stuff, and more is becoming available all the time. Research I was doing 4 years ago, some of them was like, I can't find anything, and now I'm being able to find more information, so it's really great. And another example of an insulator here in our collection, this one from the Canadian National Railway Company. So if this is a live talk, this would be the question and answer period. But if you're watching this video on our Facebook or our website or our YouTube channel, please use the comment section to ask any questions that you might have, and we will get to them as soon as possible. Some upcoming talks that we have going on. So you can join the talks virtually with Zoom or Facebook Live, or you can attend in person at the museum. We are limited to 3 people at most just during this time, and masks are required. Registration is required for Zoom and in-person attendance through our website. Once again, if you like what we're doing, you can support the Transcona Museum, consider making a donation or becoming a museum member. You can stay in touch. We have our website, we have our social media pages, or our mailing list. And thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we'll have sparked some interest in collecting insulators, be them glass or porcelain, and we hope that you will join us for our other small talks coming up soon. All right, bye.